Let's talk about Reading Festival. So I woke up this morning and saw a very, very exciting tweet come through that we're getting our first Reading Festival announcement next week, which has made me write and record this video as quick as I possibly can. What we're going to do today is have a stab at who could be headlining the Radio 1 stage in 2019. Headlining the Radio 1 stage is, for some people, the biggest part of their career. It shows immense talent in an independent kind of scene. It's not as glamorous as the main stage, but it's not as commercial. It's a bit like headlining the other stage at Glastonbury. This year was the first time it was changed from being the NME stage to the Radio 1 stage. So if I call it the NME stage, then I'm really sorry, it's just old habit. 10 years, I can't help it. In 2011, the stage went from being a 12,000 capacity tent, which is huge, to a 20,000 capacity tent, making it the largest tent in Europe. Now, to go over this, I think it's really important to look at who has headlined in the last few years. There are some things that tend to give an idea of who could be up to it. Another thing that kind of gives a really good hint, something I've noticed over the last few years is, it certainly was the case with Haim and Wolf Alice, was have they played Alexandra Palace? Alexandra Palace is an amazing venue in North London, which is around 10,500 people. By no means does that mean that it's fixed. I'm sure there's a lot else that goes into them making the decision, but I think that gives us a good idea. So it's very important that they're releasing new music, that they're touring, and that they, and something that I quite like is that have they played Alexandra Palace recently? With that in mind, let's have a look at some of the artists that I've put on my list. To start us off, we've got Bring Me The Horizon. Now, Bring Me The Horizon have been rumoured to be headlining the main stage. Obviously, they played a secret set last year, and they have their 6th studio album releasing, which is the first one in 4 years. So they've got this huge fan base. The tent this year was absolutely rammed, and they're playing Ali Pali at the end of November, so they're certainly rife for it. They're also playing the Brisbane Entertainment Centre, which has a capacity of 13,500 people. They've been mentioned to headline the festival. I don't think they're that big. I don't. That's my opinion. I don't want to upset Bring Me The Horizon fans. I thoroughly enjoy their new music. I just don't think they're commercially successful enough to headline Reading Festival yet. Maybe a good couple of albums, and they definitely could, but I think they're rife for the Radio 1 slot, definitely. Another artist that's been mentioned to headline the main stage, one that also I don't think will, is 21 Pilots. I think they're way more of a tent band, and they've got a huge following, don't get me wrong, but I think they'd work really, really well headlining the Radio 1 stage. Their 3rd album released in October and has had critical acclaim, and they've had 2 sold-out shows at Brixton Academy. They've got a massive, massive following, and they're definitely an act that I could see headlining the Radio 1 stage in 2019. Third one, we're going back in time a little bit. We're going to an older band. The days of the Prodigy headlining, I think, are in its past. That being said, they've just had their 7th #1 album in the past 24 years, which is a record for a dance act. They played at Alexandra Palace this week. They've also sub-headlined at Reading before, so they've definitely played to big audiences. They're one of the biggest dance acts in history. There's something about me that thinks that would be an amazing experience to see them in that tent, which is, in my opinion, one of my favourite venues in the world. So yeah, seeing Warriors dance and Poison and Firestarter and Breathe and Smack My Bitch Up and all those amazing records in that tent, you lose a lot of weight, that's for sure. They last played at Reading in 2009, supporting the Arctic Monkeys, and with a successful 7th album, I think it would be great to see them headline the NME tent. The next band I think that could do it are a band that haven't played Reading since 2011. They played on the main stage. I'm talking about Friendly Fires. The last time they played the Radio 1 tent was in 2009, which in my opinion was the greatest run of acts on the NME stage at the time. Started with Jack Pignate, followed by Florence and the Machine, then Friendly Fires, and then Jamie T. Also in 2009, their debut album was nominated for a Mercury Prize. They were the hottest indie band around, and they're just an amazing live act. They've been on a musical hiatus since 2011. With Brandon, I think it's Brandon, featuring on Disclosure's debut album. But they've released 2 singles this year. The first was Love Like Waves, and their recent single, Heaven Let Me In, was a collaboration with Disclosure. I could definitely see them headlining the Radio 1 stage. I think they've got an amazing following. They played a sold-out show in Brixton Academy this year, and if not, I could definitely see them playing a high slot on the main stage. Next is admittedly a bit of an oddball, but few modern bands are as influential as Fiddler. They're definitely someone who inspire most modern indie kind of indie punk bands. Bands like Wallows and Waves and Swimmers, and bands like Good Dukes, who I featured last week, Circa Waves, Party Baby, Pup. There's a plethora of bands that would say that they're inspired by Fiddler. They have their third studio album releasing in January, and they've not played Reading since 2013. The next band is going to be one that's personal to me. They're my favourite band in history, and that's Block Party. They played at Alexandra Palace last month and are playing the River Stage in Brisbane at the end of this month, which has a capacity of 9,500 people. And at one point, Block Party were on the verge of becoming a headline act with a massive cult following. I was definitely one of them. And just record after record was incredible. Unfortunately, they split up and went on a hiatus and didn't release anything new for a long time. They haven't played Reading since 2009 and would definitely generate a big enough pull to headline the Radio 1 stage. Whether or not that happens or not, I don't know. I don't know how popular they are with Radio 1. I don't actually know how much Radio 1 have an influence in that stage anymore, whether it's just that's what it's named. But I could definitely see them headlining it, if not quite high on the bill on the main stage. Next is another bit of an odd one, and we're looking at Massive Attack. They're currently celebrating 20 years of their incredibly influential Mezzanine, and they have very limited UK tour dates before they go off on a massive American tour. They're playing the O2 Arena in February, which is an enormous, enormous venue. I think it's about 20,000 people. And I could definitely see them headlining the Radio 1 stage. Annie Mac was talking about them just the other day, so that could definitely be one as a bit of a nostalgia factor. Someone else who I think who is ripe for headlining the Radio 1 stage is The Streets. Mike Skinner retired The Streets in 2011, which is where he co-headlined the then NME stage of Too Many DJs for one of the last festival slots of their career. That being said, he's back. He recently released new music and he played, I think, 2 sold-out shows in Brixton this year. Definitely an artist that is popular amongst British fans, indie fans, I think people who like hip-hop and rap, garage. He's an incredibly influential artist, and I could definitely see them headlining that stage. For the next set of artists, we're going a little bit left of the field. The first one is The Good, The Bad, The Queen. The Good, The Bad, The Queen are a supergroup founded by Damon Albarn of Blur and Gorillaz fame, and they're back with their second studio album next year. And I think because of their stature and they're a supergroup, could kind of go in straight at the top in a similar way that BDI did in 2011. The next band is the Chemical Brothers. Now, if you're fortunate enough to have seen the Chemical Brothers play ever, then you'll completely understand why I'm suggesting this. They played at Alexander Palace in October. They're absolute pioneers of electronic music. And this would follow the trend of the Radio 1 stage over the past few years, with acts like Deadmau5, Skrillex, Pendulum, Diplo, Major Lazer, all taking that headline slot. They released their first new music in 3 years in September, which is taken from the 9th studio album, which is due for release next year. But they haven't played Reading Festival since 1999, where they sub-headlined and supported the Charlatans. A 20-year gap would seem quite poetic to me. They bring an amazing light show, and it would just be a set list full of absolute bangers. So for me, I mean, it's a dream of mine. They've been top of my list for years. I got to see them at the Roundhouse a couple of years ago, and they were phenomenal. So the Chemical Brothers would be an absolute massive booking. And I don't think there's been anyone that's been more influential on pop music than Scandi electro synth pop artist Robyn. She inspires so many current artists like Maggie Rogers and Sigrid, but also mainstream artists like Lady Gaga and Rihanna and Katy Perry and Taylor Swift. Billboard described her as the low-key fairy godmother of pop music, which I think is incredibly apt. And she's never played Reading Festival before, but certainly holds the kind of independent indie credence. This surprises me, as Melvin Ben and Festival Republic have been scrutinised for their lack of female support over the last few years, with only 3, this is crazy, with only 3 of the 29 acts headlining the Radio 1 stage since 2010 having a female member. Only 2 of them are fronted by females, that's Wolf Alice and Hayne. That's just over 10%. And there's some newer acts that I think that could be ready for that bill as well. The first kind of newer act is someone that has never played Reading before, and that's Logic. Hip hop is growing more and more at this festival. The closest rapper that we've ever had to headlining the Radio 1 stage was Limp Bizkit, I think in 2016, it might have been 15. Logic has a massive following, it's absolutely enormous. And he released his fourth album in September and managed to conjure up support from the Wu-Tang. He also played Alexander Palace in September, so he definitely has the ability to bring in the numbers. I could certainly see him headlining the bill, if not a very respectable slot on the main stage. Another artist is Rudimental. As I said, there's a growing demand for dance music at the Radio 1 stage over the last few years, and they recently played Alexander Palace in October. I'm not sure. I think that's one way to get people with pitchforks and torches chasing after Melvin Ben, but hey, they're a big band, maybe, I don't know. Another artist that have huge support from Radio 1 is Churches. They're playing Ali Pali in February with very limited tickets left. It actually says that they're nearly sold out online. And then they're not a band I would choose to headline, but I think they've definitely got a big enough following, and they're a pretty big band. So maybe we could see them headlining the Enemy tent on one of the days. And the last band I think that could headline is Jungle. They've got a hugely anticipated second album on the way. They've got a show at Ali Pali planned in February, same as Churches. So maybe, I mean, they've got a massive following, and I think that this second album of theirs will take them to the next level. Whether or not that is headline material, I don't know. They've certainly played the Radio 1 stage before. I think it was 2016, it might have been 15. And that first album was one of my favourites that year, so they're massive. I think they're great. If not, I think we'd see them very high up on the bill. Let me know your thoughts. I know I shared a lot of bands there, and you know, that's a bit like putting fish in a barrel, but we shall see. We'll find out next week, I feel sure. But I think it would be great to see some of those headline the tent. As I said, during that, it's one of my favourite stages in the entire world, so I hope it's someone good, especially if we have someone that's not great on the main stage. That's the worst. Well, no, the best is when you have someone crap on the main stage and someone great in the Enemy tent. I've done that a fair few times. So, thoughts in the comment section below. If you like my Reading Festival videos, please like and subscribe, as I'll be posting quite a lot more content in the coming weeks, especially as we have our first announcement next week. So, it'd be lovely to hear from you. Let me know what you think. See you next time. Bye.